Direct access and the modern worker. Direct access is a VPN solution that provides seamless connectivity for client computers or client servers to their domain via IPv6. Unlike older VPN solutions that require the user to initiate the connection, IPv6 allows for complete unhindered access to network resources without the user having to initiate the connection. Essentially, from the user side of the experience, it is as if they are plugged in directly to the network at the office. Organizations that would benefit from the use of direct access include medium to large organizations with salaried workers who do not have a clock-in requirement, especially organizations that already have the infrastructure in place to support direct access. Companies with large outside sales departments and large on-site service departments would also benefit in that they would have direct access to all of their software that they use for sales and service without the need to initiate a connection or worry about remembering their passwords. Companies that employ many distance employees who do not come to a central office. Those companies include ones that employ many workers across the world. For a computer to connect to direct access, it goes through several steps. First, the client computer attempts to contact the network location server. If it can contact the network location server, then the client computer, is on the intranet and does not attempt to contact the direct access service. If the computer, however, cannot contact the NLS, it starts the direct access connection process. The computer then tries to connect to the direct access server via IPsec and IPv6. However, if those technologies are not in place, it will attempt to connect via 6-to-4 or Teredo tunneling or IP HTTPS via SSL. Then the computer authenticates itself with certificates. From this point, if NAP and MPS are configured and enabled, they will verify the health of the client's workstation. At user logon, a second secure connection is created that allows the user to access network resources. Direct access works ideally with IPv6 because of IPv6's ability to give IP addresses to literally every device on the earth. Direct access has some minimal operating system requirements. The client must be part of an Active Directory domain whose domain controller is running a minimum of Windows Server 2008 R2. The clients must be running Windows 7 Enterprise or Ultimate, Windows 8 or 8.1, and Windows 10. All subsequent Microsoft operating systems will include direct access. Server clients for organizations that have different sites across the world that connect back to the domain via direct access must be running Windows Server 2008 R2 or newer. Windows Server 2016 also supports direct access. Certain network infrastructures must also be configured to allow for direct access. These include group policy for the deployment and administration of direct policy configurations of the clients. As stated before, there must be one domain controller running Windows Server 2008 R2 or newer. Public key infrastructure for authentication of certificates must also be enabled. IPsec policies must be configured and enabled. The domain must be enabled for communication via IPv6 or have the necessary transition technologies in place, such as 6-to-4, Teredo tunneling, or ISOTAP. When you run the wizard to create direct access, there are 4 steps. First, you must specify which clients utilize direct access. Often, this is done via group policy, where you place the computers into the necessary group that need to have that need to have access via direct access. Then, through Remote Access Server, you configure the network connection. This is where you determine the configuration for whether or not your direct access server resides within your DMZ or on the exterior of your network. Infrastructure servers. In step 3, you configure how clients access the infrastructure of your network, such as DHCP and DNS. And lastly, application servers. Here's where you configure the end-to-end authentication and security components of what part of your network will be accessed by direct access clients. Modern workers aged 18 to 32 tend to stay hyperconnective. They also prefer to work different hours. But because they do not prefer to work 8 to 5 does not necessarily mean that they do not work. Direct access, if enabled, is an extra tool that allows modern workers to retain the amount of productivity that the traditional 8 to 5 workers have, while living their life as they so choose. For example, a worker comes in at 10, works until 1, and then leaves the office to take care of some business. After business, they go out with friends for dinner, and then when they finish with dinner, they return home at 9:30. As they took their company-issued laptop with them, they open it up at home and connect it to their home Wi-Fi. Immediately, their laptop reaches out to try to find the NLS server. Since it cannot see the network location server, it automatically initiates contact to the direct access server. From there, the modern worker logs in as they normally would and picks up their work and works until 2. Now, allow me to present my demo for configuring and allowing a worker to access the network via direct access. For my demonstration, I have a domain set up named contoso.com. And on this domain, my domain controller here named AD01. I also have a server that will function as my NLS server, server 1, and then I have my workstation down here named Modern Worker that is joined to the domain. I'm going to demonstrate how to configure and set up initially the basic settings for direct access, and then I'm also going to demonstrate direct access is functioning by having my workstation here, my Windows 10 workstation, connected with 2 networks, and I'm going to disconnect the internal network that gives it connectivity to the domain and enable the external network to simulate the worker taking the laptop home and connecting it to their home Wi-Fi. I'm going to demonstrate the basics of installing direct access. First, open up your server manager and then go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. I already have the wizard pulled up here. Select Next. This is a role-based configuration. Next. This is the server it's going on, server1.contoso.com, Microsoft Windows Server 2012 R2. Next. And I'm going to add, it's on a domain, so I do not need to add Active Directory domain services or Active Directory certificate services, but what I am going to need to do is add the remote access. It's going to think for just a moment. Hit Next. Add features. Go ahead and install RSAT remote. Oh, as I was. Configuring RI's routing features. There we go. Next. I selected Direct Access and VPN, RAS. This is to be a direct access server. So, select Add Features. Next. Next. Hit Next. Install. And now we wait for the installation to complete. Okay, we're going to go over the open the getting started wizard now that we've done the it's the configuration required for direct access. If I click it. But if I minimize the server manager, it'll be in the background. Oh, look, there it is. I'm going to select to deploy both direct access and VPN. It's recommended by Microsoft. And Microsoft is always right. Just going to check the prerequisites. I don't have static IPs on any of my servers, but that's okay. In real world scenario, I would. I'm going to deploy this as a behind and edge device with 2 network adapters. I have one network adapter called internal that's connected to my domain, and then I have my external one that would be connected out to the big bad internet behind a nice firewall, of course. There is no firewall for this simulation, but real world there would be. Type the public name or IPv4 address used by clients to connect to the remote access server. So I'm going to say server1.contoso.com. Next, and it did not give me an error like my lab did. I'm very happy. Now it's going to apply, retrieve some GPO, it's going to do some thinking. Whole bunch of fun stuff. And while that thinks, I'm going to pause the video because it might take a minute. Now that the Remote Access Management Console has been opened after the successful completion of the Getting Started wizard, I'm going to go to the remote excuse me, I'm going to select Direct Access and VPN and then go over here to step 1 on the remote clients. Select Edit and the Direct Access client setup pops up. On the deployment scenario page, I'm going to select Deploy Full Direct Access for client access and remote management. If it's part of the domain, for the sake of this exercise, it's going to be able to join. I'm going to deselect that because I want any computer that's supposed to be on the domain to get to it. Select Next. I'm going to delete this. Now I'm going to double click in a blank resource place, and then I'm going to put in the name in this dialog box. The name of my domain controller, which is ado01.contoso.com. Validate. Oh, why is it not valid? Let's find out. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't change that to ping. Oh, look, that's the right IP address for my domain controller. And I'm going to click Add. Now, I do not have any other servers in my domain, so I'm going to click Finish. And it's going to do something, and it is done. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to configure step 2, remote access server. Select Edit. That's already been designated, so I select Next. On the network adapters page, I'm going to, for external, that is the correct address. For internal, that is correct. I pre-labeled those. I want that to use a self-signed certificate created automatically by direct access. And note here, as I mentioned in my earlier presentation, that if your network is not IPv6 enabled, ensure the transition technologies are enabled for IPv4 support. They are enabled by default. Select Next. We're just going to use Active Directory credentials. We are not going to use two-factor authentication, for example, a smart card or a one-time password. Excuse me. Select Next. Assign IP address automatically, authentication. Use Windows authentication. I do not have a Radius server set up. We're just going to use Windows authentication. Select Finish, and that was step 2. Now we're moving on to step 3, infrastructure servers. Select Edit. The network location server is deployed on the remote access server. Select the certificate used to authenticate the network selection. We're going to use a self-signed certificate in this case. Select Next. Going to click Next. On the DNS suffix page, I'm going to select Next again. And on the, select Next again. There we go. On the management page, I'm going to double click on this first line of the Add Management page, and I'm going to type the name of my domain controller's fully qualified domain name, which is 8001.contoso.com. Select OK, then select Finish. That concludes step 3. For step 4, select Edit. And in this case, since I don't really have any application servers on my domain, I don't have to configure this. In real world, this is where I would add or limit what network resources you can access via direct access. For example, file servers, print servers, application servers that run certain programs or software. But in our case, for this exercise, I don't have to. And I will select Finish. Now that I've configured steps, well, come on, I want to show you. There, Mr. Duncanson. Steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can select Finish. It's going to think for just a moment. And after, this is my review. This tells me, hey, here's what we're going to configure. Here's what we're going to look like. And then you hit, actually I'm going to take a screenshot of this first, and then I will hit Apply. Okay, now we're going to hit Apply. And it's going to apply the remote settings. It was successful. Select Close, and we are to move on to the next step in our process now. Okay, here is my workstation running Windows 8.1 Enterprise. As you can see, I'm currently joined to the domain contoso.com. And to simulate my network resource, I'm going to navigate to a shared folder on my domain controller. See, I am a network resource. So, if all goes well, when I turn this machine off and install the external network adapter, it should come up, try to contact my NLS server, not contact my NLS server, and then contact the direct access server, which is one and the same with my NLS server, just with a different IP address. And hopefully I will be able to get to this I'm a network resource. So we shall see. Okay, here's my Windows 8.1 Enterprise workstation. My internal NIC is disabled that connects me to contoso.com. My external NIC is enabled. So I'm going to minimize this, minimize that, and we're going to do some pinging. I'm going to open up command prompt. Maybe. Come on. There we go. Ping my I got a reply. Wonder if I got DNS working right. Probably not. Oh, well, there we go. Let's see if I can access my simulated network resource. AD01/demo folder. I am a network resource.